Today is October the 2nd, 2019. I have the privilege to interview Miss Muriel Boyd. How are you today, Miss Boyd?
I'm doing very well, Oralee. Thank you for coming.
Yes, I'm honored to interview you, my preschool teacher. Okay, so let's talk about your history.
My
Where were you
personal
born?
history?
Where were you born?
I was actually born not very far from here, and I was thinking about there. I was born on 23rd and Waldron at what turned into Queen of the World Hospital, but I looked at my birth certificate, and in 1954, it was St. Vincent's Hospital, and it didn't become Queen of the World until 1955, so it was St. Vincent's Hospital then, and that's where I was born.
Wow. Where'd you attend school?
I went to Phyllis Wheatley Elementary School on 24th and Agnes, and then to Lincoln Junior and Lincoln Senior High School.
Okay, and what were your parents' names?
My parents are Reginald and Fleta Franklin. Yeah, that's them. This is my dad, Reginald, and my mom, Fleta Franklin, and here's another picture of our entire family. My parents, Reginald was born here in Kansas City, and my mom was born in Topeka, Kansas. And they lived here their entire lives. They attended Lincoln High School as well, and I think my grandmother also attended Lincoln High School.
Lincoln High School. Lincoln High School of what year?
My mom graduated from Lincoln High School in 1940, and I do have her yearbook. This is her high school yearbook, the Lincolnite 1940. And one thing I found out about my mom, she is Fleta Denny in here. But you know how they write something about you underneath your pictures? Well, they said about Fleta Denny, Miss Denny, you talk incessantly. So when I used to get in trouble about talking a lot,
That's where you
I
got
would
that
point
from.
to that. This is her.
What was it like
High
growing
school
up with
picture.
her and your father?
Oh my gosh. You would think they never did wrong, but because my sisters tell me the first word I could spell was P-E-S-T. I know you don't believe that I was a pest, but I was. And my parents were strict disciplinarians by the time I came along. This is my oldest sister, Lynette. Regina is in the middle, and me, the youngest. Lynette was graduated from high school in 1960 when I was in kindergarten. So she told me I had different parents than her. At first I was like, I got different parents than you. And so she meant that my parents were really young. They were 19 years old when she was born. And by the time I came along, you know, they were 30 years old. So of course they were much different when I was born than they would be at 19.
Right. What was it like during segregation? Did you see segregation at all?
You know what? I try to think about that, and we did live in a time of segregation, but I really personally didn't know about it. My oldest sister really does, because she went to Lincoln and then she went to what was then Kansas City Junior College. And it was, you know, it wasn't segregated, it had just been integrated, but she felt differently. But I think my parents shielded us. Okay, so I used to get upset because some of my friends said, we went to Fairyland Park. You know, Fairyland Park was open one day a year for black people. But I never went. But I went to Disneyland because Walt Disney wanted everybody's money. Mm-hmm. So we were really sheltered from a lot of that. And by the time I got to in my teen years, I attended Carnes Theater, which is, it is in these two memory books, it was a theater group for teenagers. Just like you could take vocational classes at school, you could go from school to take theater classes, and that's what I did. And so it was totally integrated. So I didn't really think about it until probably my 20s. So, you know, Queen of the World Hospital was established because some nuns wanted better health care for the black kids in Kansas City. And so I thought, you know, everything was great. I really didn't know anything about it, and they didn't bring those things home to us.
Okay. Now I have pictures of your grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me about those two? You said some great things about those women, and during those times, I know they overcame a lot of things. They were fighting.
Yes. This is one of the oldest pictures in our collection here. This is Elizabeth Mantooth Starks. She is a Cherokee Indian who in 1836, when the Trail of Tears, as a 10-year-old little girl, she had to go on the Trail of Tears because the U.S. government thought they found gold in Georgia, where the Cherokees were at that time. And my cousin, he's a professor at Ball State. He did his dissertation on her life, and he discovered that as a child she had to sleep in animal pens along the way and was really mistreated. And some of her children were taken from her. The child that I'm descended from, Eliza, she and her brothers went to Texas, and they were, I don't know if it was land grant, but they were given some land in Texas, and they lived down there for a while. But yeah, so she really had a bad life. I mean, I can't say a bad life, because when she got to Oklahoma, she became a free woman. She was a free Cherokee Indian, and she lived well then. This is my dad's mom. Her dad actually had this Bible, which is published in 1864. So, Emancipation. He had this Bible. And I really don't know that much about his life, but I do have his marriage certificate here. This is his wedding certificate, her dad's wedding certificate. And it's from 1873, so 10 years after emancipation. He had his own wedding certificate. And in this book, he has written down a lot of things, a lot of notes, a lot of sermon notes are still in this Bible. He's written the family, births and deaths, marriages, and he lived in Mississippi, so I'm sure he faced a lot of obstacles in his way, but I really haven't researched his life. But he did well enough to send his children to Tuskegee, and that's where this picture was taken, at Tuskegee. I'm sure, like my parents, he tried to shield them, like all parents try to shield their children from the harsh realities of the world. She came to Kansas City in the early 20s and married my grandfather, Dan Franklin, and the house that I knew that they lived in was on 25th and Highland. And her husband, Dan Franklin, I was a little child. I was 4 years old when he passed, and I was 8 years old when she passed. So I knew them sort of, but I think my memories are kind of skewed, you know, as a child's memories.
What was it like when you were in Kansas City, like on 18th and Vine? And what was it like? Did you go out and have fun and do things with the other blacks?
Well, most of my memories, you probably think this is true because you know me very well, are church memories. Um, I hear stories about my parents going out and, going on 18th Street and hanging out with their friends and going up on 12th Street. But by the time I came along, they were church people. So we were in church a lot of the times. Most of my friends were at church. Most of our activities were centered around church. So, I would hear, on Mondays going back to school, the kids say, I went to ISIS movie theater. And I'm like, I went to BTU, a church. I'm like, they went out on Sunday. I was at church on Sunday.
And what church did you attend?
Paseo Baptist.
Okay, so you were there when Olivia was there. Were you ever able to meet Olivia?
I probably did, but I really know your family through Theron, your cousin, who is her parents, her mom, and my dad were classmates. And thank you. This is my dad's high school yearbook, Lincoln 1939, and your grandfather, Warren, and his sister, Laverne, were in the same class and with my dad. And her daughter, Theron, was my friend. And I just remember when they lived on 25th and Benton, in the house there, that's where I knew your grandmother from. Great-grandmother. Oh my gosh. Your great-grandmother. And we would go over there. Bruce, who was in my class, we would play together, and kids across the street, Vanita Ransom and the Westbrooks, and we would all just play in their yard there and go to birthday parties. And then when Bruce moved to, was it 28th Street or on Lockridge? They lived
Where Sunfresh is today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was back then.
But yeah, we would go over there. They'd have a party. Robbie was there. Your dad, Warren, and so we would. It was just. I think kids, the people who grew up together, their kids, us, we would all socialize together, and birthday parties and outings.
How did you become an educator? Because I met you at Paseo. Yes, you were my teacher there.
Well, I love kids, and I had an opportunity to teach Sunday school and to get involved with children, because like I said, the most important thing in my growing up years was the church. And then I wanted to, my mom, not only did she collect the photographs, but we read all the time. We had a television, and I wish we watched more of it, but we've always read books. We had a lot of books to read, and my sister would read all the Nancy Drew books, and we would go to the library and get books, and they had more branch libraries then. And sometimes we would go downtown to the library, but I just thought education was very, very important, and it changed my life, and it's changed my family's life, education, and so, I thought I wanted to show the importance of education for other people as well.
Yeah. Because I know you found the creativity in my son too. He was also his teacher. And what would you tell the youth today regarding choices that they should make? Because they can make a good decision, a bad decision, and how to balance that decision making. Because you did.
Yeah. What I would say to the children today is be an influencer, not be influenced. Be the leader and not be led. I would like them to look inside themselves. If they like music, find out more about music. If they like art, find out more about art. If you like building, even, you had Legos, you can see your child wants to build. There's so many things they can learn how to do. If they like photography, learn how to make a pinhole camera with a shoebox. Do things that are not expensive, that are free, and that you can educate yourself. If you learn how to read, you can be an educated person. Learn to read, learn to grow, be a leader, don't be led.
Tell us a little bit about your experience in Kansas City, Missouri public schools.
My experience in the Kansas City School District started in 1959. We got new flags because we just got new states. So that can tell you how old I am. In my kindergarten class, all my entire public school education was in segregated schools. But I really didn't think of them as segregated schools because the teachers were so fantastic and wanted us to learn.
Were they mostly black teachers?
They were all black teachers until I got to high school. And that is the first time I had a white teacher. And they were all young. They were straight out of KU or MU, first or second or third year teaching. And a lot of kids gave them hard times because they knew that they were young and a little bit apprehensive about being here at a all African American school. But some of them, one of them's still my Facebook friend. So I saw it as an opportunity to grow my world. I always had an interest. When I was little, my mom put up a world map on our bedroom wall. And we had bunk beds. And so sometimes I got a chance to sleep on the top because my sister would let me. But I'd look at that map and I'd say, I want to go here, and I want to go here, and I wanted to go here. And I always had a love for travel, which I've been able to do. But I think about it, I was born the year Brown versus Topeka Board of Education was passed. And really, a black woman born in 1954 in Kansas City should not have gone any further than St. Louis or Branson or maybe Vegas if I was lucky, really, because America was so closed. But really, I haven't moved very far from where I grew up. I'm still close to my old neighborhood, and I see that now this neighborhood is changing again, because one day I was driving up the street and I saw a young white girl jogging. I wanted to pull over and say, baby, are you okay? I'm like, is somebody chasing you? But I see more people walking their dogs and out jogging and buying homes and redoing the neighborhood. And especially in Northeast, that neighborhood is totally flipped, and the houses are really, there's bed and breakfasts, and just it's becoming really, really lovely to live in this area. And prized property, which we're right on right now, which is another whole long story, but it's prized property now.
So you live in Parade Park. Can you give us a little of the history of the area, Parade Park area?
Actually, homes were here before this was developed into a housing complex. It was torn down, and this is my oldest sister, Lynette. and my nephew Brent and her husband Raymond, they were the first residents in Parade Park. They came here when it first opened as a development for young families to come to live and to have a nice home. And it was filled, it was robust, it was full of children and families, and a lot of people who became movers and shakers in Kansas City started here, started living here. Ben Boyd lived there, his mom, and a lot of other people lived here.
Yeah. And then it became low-income housing for a while,
It was owned, it was taken over by the Housing Authority, by HUD, and then a private developer took it over, and now we're in discussion about either rebuilding senior homes or homes that are on the regular market. It's much discussion about it now.
So it's kind of up in the air.
Yes.
Well, you were born in 1954,
Yes.
right at the time of the Brown versus Board of Education.
Correct.
So that was a very important civil rights accomplishment for the Supreme Court to rule. But how did that affect your attendance in schools here in Kansas City?
Well, I continued to go to what became segregated schools, but was Lincoln High School, not Lincoln College Prep then, even though they did prepare us for college. I really didn't know any different, that the school was not up to par, because I would think it was more than qualifying for the students, because the teachers were always above the call of duty. They lived in this neighborhood, they knew our parents, they wanted us to do well, and they wanted us to succeed.
They were predominantly black teachers?
Until I got to high school. And then we had teachers that were...
I'm gonna have you repeat it. The teachers were predominantly black until, yeah.
Okay, the teachers that I had in elementary and junior high school were all black until I attended Lincoln High School. At that time, they had teachers who were coming in from KU and MU who were in their first, second, or third year of teaching. And I'm not sure if they were there for their student loans to pay them off, or to really because that's where they were assigned, but a lot of them were apprehensive about being there in the post-riot Kansas City all-black school.
Well, talk about the 58 riots and the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay, it was 1968 that
68.
Dr. King was assassinated, and I was a student at Lincoln Junior High School in the 8th grade. We found out about it because there was an announcement over the PA system that Dr. King had been assassinated. We, as students, really didn't know what to do or how to process that. We were looking to our teachers, who were all so very upset about it, and then they dismissed schools. So we either had to go home, and this was in the day before cell phones, because you couldn't just call your parents then. So my sister was at Lincoln Senior High School, and I was at Lincoln Junior High School, so I walked home with some friends to their home, and just waited until I could contact my sister or my mom or my dad, and we did, and I finally got in contact with my parents. My dad said, wait, don't try to walk home, which I was used to walking everywhere or taking the bus, and so I didn't realize that on 27th Street, which would have been between where I was and my home, that buildings were being burned. And so for my own safety, he came to pick me up. And when we got home, we watched the evening news, and we saw these places that were so familiar to us being burned down, and even faces that we knew, people out on the streets protesting. And it was just a time of confusion and shock, and just a time of either being together or being really torn apart.
Did you know any of the young people that staged a march on City Hall and then later went to a meeting at the church nearby and were tear gassed by police?
I didn't personally know them. I think my older sister, Lynette, really did know some of the people. But again, because I was in 8th grade, I didn't know them.
Yeah. How do you think Kansas City is progressing with regards to representation and equality in our city?
Well, representation is, since my childhood, we've had representation, and Oralee's great uncle, Bruce Watkins, was one of the first city council persons. And we were so very proud of him because we knew him, our parents knew him, he grew up in our neighborhood, and he represented us so well with dignity and with great speech, and did everything in our eyes perfectly. And when he ran for mayor, I was a youth for Uncle Bruce, and we were so proud of him, even though he was defeated in that election. But as far as city councilmen, we've seen many African Americans, many women, many Hispanics come on the city council of Kansas City. We've seen a woman mayor here. We've had Mayor James, and then he was preceded by Mayor Cleaver, and then now succeeded by Quentin Lucas. So we're very proud of that. As far as neighborhood representation, I think that Kansas City, in some areas of Kansas City itself, are becoming more integrated, but the housing market is pricing people out. To get affordable housing is not really possible in this area, especially because we have we're so close to downtown and so close to Crossroads and all these areas that are becoming priced out of the market for just a space this size. I wouldn't be able to afford it. And so Kansas City is becoming more diverse, but not economically diverse.
Mm-hmm. Good. You had some other questions about what you would say to youth. And
Okay.
well, yeah, any of the things that are on your list.
Okay. Paseo Baptist Daycare.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what's going on with Paseo now, and what did it look like then? And I know I was only there in the 80s, so.
Well, this actually is the 49th year. Mrs. Williams and Pastor Briscoe opened it in September of '79. So this is the 40th year of the Paseo Learning Center, which is now the Irma L. Williams Learning Center, being opened. At one time, they were up to 3rd grade, and they had more than 100 students. It's not that way now. The Learning Center, any transition is a challenge. And so the Learning Center is getting back on its feet as far as being an asset to the community. At the time when you were there weren't many that were educating the kids. There were mostly daycares babysitting the kids. And we don't want to go back to that, because the Learning Center, even when your little boy was there, and you and your brother, and you did things that little children don't do, go on field trips and are exposed to people in the community, have rigorous academics, and just have a full curriculum that really encourages the children. And you're a great example of the products.
Yes. And you said that you had a lot of different friends that are doing great things. Are you still in contact with any of these people?
Actually, yeah, I'm grateful for technology now. I am in contact with my high school friends. We have class reunions and different outings. I see people here. I think you asked a question about 18th and Vine earlier. Well, my parents were here in its heyday, and now I'm here in its revitalization, because there's always something going on 18th and Vine now. The American Jazz Museum and the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum are the anchors, but they have restaurants and art gallery there, a film. It's not a film studio, but also Rodney Thompson has his office there, where he's doing great films that are being shown around the city and even on our local PBS station. Just all kinds of great things are going on 18th Street, and this being First Friday coming up, there are going to be a lot of events that are going on. There are plays at the Gym Theater, and there are musical events. Just great things are happening there.
How do you want to be remembered? What would you like to see happen?
Oh my gosh. I hope it's not this week, but when I leave here, I hope I'm remembered as a person who helped other people achieve their dreams. I want to be a helper, and to help other people, to assist other people, to see in them things they may not have seen. I want to be known as a person who will be an encourager.
Do you think that the family members, the blood that's running through your veins, has a lot to do with why you are who you are today?
I really think so. My parents were some of the most generous people that I knew. And I think about that. When you left my parents' house, my mom would always give you a book. In her last years, we had so many books. I would tell people they would take one book, and I say, no, you're not taking enough books. Take more books. But my dad would pick people up from the airport, drive them around. I used to tell my friends, if you landed in New York, my daddy would come and pick you up. He would come and get you. So they were so generous, and I never knew a shortage or a deficit. My mom would make our clothes. She would sew for us. My dad and mom cooked. They did everything. She made these curtains. That's why I'm keeping them. So I try to follow their example of, when you see a need, don't wait for someone to ask you. Do it. Give.
It's wonderful.